What's up, everybody? Thralls here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have an album review. And needless to say, this one was definitely anticipated. Longtime fan of the man, the legend, the myth, the guy that bit off a bat's head, all that fun shit. So we are going to go over the latest offering from Ozzy, Patient number 9. This also comes out on the 9th of September on Epic Records, which we rarely ever review anything on Epic Records anymore. We were kind of reflecting on that, like, Epic Records?
Right, I can only think of a handful of releases on Epic Records, one of which being Ozzy, another which being Michael Jackson. I mean, there's not a whole lot that comes in our area that is from Epic Records, so it was kind of an odd one.
Yeah, I think the only other time I brought up Epic Records was when we reviewed Ozzy's last album, Ordinary Man. And, well, I mean, that was kind of one of the reasons why we wanted to do this, because we thought that would be possibly the last Ozzy album, but we have a new album here, and it could be possibly the last Ozzy album, we don't know.
It feels like it. It really feels like I don't want to give a lot away, but we're going to dive into it anyway. Yeah. It just feels like a bunch of really awesome musicians getting together and saying, all right, Ozzy, look, you know, you had the record before, now you have this one, and we want to make sure that, you know, we're fans of you, so we want to kind of prop this up a little bit. Yeah. And that's definitely what this feels like. I mean, you know, we don't know. Ozzy's Ozzy. Yeah. Dude, he's done a lot.
I mean, from his solo career, which started in, 1980, this is the 13th album overall, and as we were talking about, like, guests, holy shit, there are a lot of them. Guitar-wise, Jesus. All right, we have Zakk Wylde. We have Jeff Beck. We have Eric Clapton. Yep. We have Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age.
We have Tony Iommi.
That guy.
Right. The god of all things fucking sludgy, doomy, blah.
We even have Mike McCready from, Pearl Jam, but I like his work in Mad Season better. Even Dave Navarro is on here. Drums, we have both Chad Smith and, unfortunately, the recently departed Taylor Hawkins, which, that still fucking stings.
Yes.
But it's awesome to hear him on an Ozzy album. I know he was super excited about it. And
why wouldn't he be? Yeah. He's on an Ozzy album.
I'd be excited to be on an Ozzy album.
Right, it doesn't get more creme de la creme than being on an Ozzy record.
Yeah. So. And bass-wise, we have Robert Trujillo, which, it's Robert Trujillo. Dude's fucking awesome. We also have Duff McKagan on here, which he was actually on the last one, too. Yeah. So was Chad Smith. So we have a lot of returning players, but I feel like this album, like, energy-wise and vibe-wise, is a lot different than Ordinary Man. Now, we actually rated it pretty high in our review, and part of that was kind of due to, like,
right.
Is this the last one? And I do like that album. It's very heartfelt, it's very introspective, it's kind of a bummer, and it's a little uneven, especially that Post Malone track. Fuck that track. But this album, man, like... It's kind of all over Ozzy's career.
Yep, you're gonna hear a lot of nostalgia in this that harps back to the early days of Ozzy, both as a solo band, there's Sabbath nods. It's very warm and heartfelt. Like the emotion, you can just tell that something's afoot, per se.
I mean, honestly, like, it's, again, kind of that same vibe that was on Ordinary Man, you know, just in terms of, you know, this was the twilight years of Ozzy. Like, you know, he's had time to reflect, look back at his life, you know, all the different things he's done, and all that is on here still, but there's way more energy, and he brought a lot of fucking killer players and friends along for this one, and it just feels like a different album. Like, right away, the opening track, Patient number 9, the big lead-off single with the really awesome animated video. First off, they did the whole single edit thing for that, which I haven't heard anyone do in a while, because this track is actually over 7 minutes long, and the stuff they cut out, you know, for the sake of the single and the video and all that, I get it, but holy shit, you cut off an amazing solo from Jeff Beck. Jeff Beck... It's just sort of like a weird pairing to think, oh, Ozzy and Jeff Beck, and then, you know, Chad Smith and Robert Trujillo all together.
But it works. And Jeff Beck, I mean, first of all, it's Jeff Beck.
It's Jeff.
I love Jeff Beck. He's a hell of a guitarist, but he brings a lot of flavor to this that you wouldn't normally associate him with, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, his leads are very melodic, but the guitar is so warm. All of the guitars on here are very warm and fuzzy.
Kind of crispy sometimes,
yeah,
too.
Yeah. But there's just almost like a shine on it. I don't really know how to present that.
Well, production on here, I was kind of worrying about that, just because it is Watt again. He did the guitars in the last album, did the production. And, I mean, he definitely wants, like, an analog sound, but, you know, with all the stuff that's going on in here, like, we have string sections, you know, vocal layering, guitar layering, Hammond keys, I mean, you know, atmospheric bits here and there. It's hard not to make it sound bloated, but, you know, it is kind of interesting how he navigates around, and namely the guitars, because you have so many different guitarists with their different tones on here. And it's really interesting because it kind of gives a lot of these songs like their own separate identity. Like they could have been standouts like on a completely different era of Ozzy.
Yep, or they could have been like, well, that too. They could have been B-sides to different Ozzy albums. Yeah.
Like Dead and Gone, we were listening to it, and honestly, it sounds almost like another Shot in the Dark.
Yes.
It's kind of got the big washy synths, a straightforward, like kind of 4/4 time rhythm, big main riff, giant chorus to it.
Yes.
And it kind of captures 80s Ozzy. And 80s Ozzy is definitely all over here with songs like Immortal and A Thousand Shades. Like that kind of captures that, you know, Bark at the Moon, Ultimate Sin sort of era, and maybe kind of alludes to the stuff you would hear on No More Tears a little bit later.
But a segue from the 80s, and you get to the 70s, those nasty, dirty 70s, with the Iommi songs, No Escape From Now and Degradation Blues.
Dude.
Oh my God.
Riffs.
And only the way that Iommi can do them, too. And you know, instantaneously, even without looking at the album, you know who's playing guitar.
The tone is so chunky, fuzzy, and warm all at the same time. Like it's the Iommi tone. It's wonderful. There's good bends in it. They're not super complex. They just deliver heft and feel, and they propel the song, especially Degradation Blues.
It starts out with Iommi riffing, and then Ozzy's playing harmonica over it, and then it's got kind of like a swampy sludge kind of feel to it. It's very pretty.
It sounds so fucking Sabbath.
And oh my God, the leads on both of Iommi's leads on these tracks are just beautiful.
I mean,
I've missed that sound. It's a sound coming from Ozzy that I haven't heard in years, personally.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like, listening to the songs, especially, like, those two songs, like, they sound like they were recorded in that era.
Yes.
But they sound like they were produced in this era.
Yes.
So you gotta get this weird contrast, because, I mean, it's definitely, you know, more compressed, so has a bit of that analog feel to it, but it definitely still feels, like, digitally done. But Degradation Blues in particular, it's almost a fucking Sabbath song. Like, it flat out is. Like, Chad Smith's drum work is so on the nose to Bill Ward's, like, the stuttering kicks, the
stuttering snares. It feels like it was a missing song from that era re-recorded now.
And Robert Trujillo is channeling Geezer Butler with those cool little bass noodles underneath the riffs. Like, dude, this is fucking good.
And they know how to end songs, too. The end of No Escape From Now has this really pretty kind of acoustic lead out going on. Very soft. Just, I'm telling you, it's drenched in nostalgia and feeling and warmth. And then the end of Degradation Rules has a nasty Iommi lead on the end of it. But it's just kind of bouncy and kind of funky a little bit. And just what a good way to end such killer songs.
Yeah. Actually, before that acoustic lead out on No Escape For Now, there is like that Sabbath boogie, because it isolates that riff for a second. You kind of feel that bouncy swagger coming, and man, it's just fantastic fucking songwriting on those two.
Each song has a lot of feeling and emotion to it, and it gives nods in all the appropriate places, both to the past and the present. And each song is kind of written that way. Every song takes you on this little journey, and it just reminds you of all of what has been kind of over the career of this man's life.
Yeah. And all that would probably be lost if there weren't, like, solid hooks in here. And I swear, like, the choruses here are absolutely gigantic. He's pouring his heart out, and he's making the best use of all the talent that is on here.
Yep.
Mr. Darkness, in particular, feels like this grand epic. Like, it really just builds up the song, gets really heavy but really epic, and man, Taylor Hawkins, and that's still such a sore subject. Man, he plays his ass off in this song, especially. He also does work on Parasite, which he does a really good job. But Mr. Darkness, I think, is like one of the shining songs on here just because the song is huge. It's grand. There's a lot of movements. And I mean, in terms of like the grand sound, again, we brought up all the instrumentation. There's even string sections on here. And they're very, I don't know, evocative. Like they kind of draw you in. Like, I don't know, they complement the choruses and all the melodies and all the guitar runs very well.
They're just little earworms.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, oh, that's cool. Another one of my favorites, one of our favorites, actually, and we had quite a few on this record, Evil Shuffle. First of all, Zakk Wylde plays guitar on this, but it doesn't sound like Zakk. It sounds like Zakk channels Tony Iommi. Actually, really, and honestly, the opening gave me chills.
Yeah.
Like, it was just... so beautiful. And then there's War Pigs nods in this song.
Definitely.
Just kind of the way it starts, and then when it cuts into the verse, it has that drop out from that soulful beginning.
Very bluesy and dirty sounding.
Yep, dark and dirty, yet still upbeat and sing-songy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still an Ozzy jam. That song's just full of nods and full of great jams.
Zakk's leads on here are scorching, but he also does like some kind of different stuff, like stuff I wasn't expecting. Like God Only Knows, one of the last tracks on here, he and Josh Homme worked together on this one, and the guitar tone itself is very like staticky and fuzzy.
Very
like,
Queens of the Stone Age.
Very Queens of the Stone Age. But the interesting thing is you got Zakk and Josh Homme, two very different players, but they found some medium in there, and I don't know, it sounds like Josh Homme just said, hey, why don't you try my rig for your lead? So you get this big, fuzzy, bluesy solo from Zakk, and it doesn't have his like signature, like crispy sound.
And that's something too that I wanted to touch on. Is normally when you get a Zakk Wylde solo, it's very noodly and full of every note in the grimoire. In this case, he doesn't do so much of that. Like a lot of his leads are more soulful, like almost like the Book of Shadows kind of Zakk, where it's just very, very heartfelt. And I like the fact that while Zakk Wylde does shred his balls off, because he's Zakk Wylde, it's not all the usual noodles and all that crazy shit you get from Zakk. It's very like honed in to the overall feel of the album versus playing Zakk's crazy shit, which is great, but it's not on this record so much.
And when it came down to guitar work, one of my surprises on here was Mike McCready. He is on the song Immortal, which is a straightforward fucking rocker, kind of like Dead and Gone. Like it has a very simple structure.
Yeah.
It's built on a powerful riff with a good vocal hook, big chorus, and he shreds his ass off.
Right, and I didn't know that was a thing.
And yeah, I was like, wow, Mike McCready, like the Pearl Jam guy.
Right.
Mad Season guy, we'll go with that. I like Mad Season better.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, like it's a very different kind of lead for him.
I didn't know he could do it.
Yeah,
I mean, to be honest, I didn't know he could do it.
I've heard him do like leads in Pearl Jam that are, you know, like they're pretty good.
That allude to that. That allude to maybe
but
that
not like this,
that talent exists. But this was kind of above and beyond. I was like, no.
Maybe like early Pearl Jam, but yeah, like it's a really like outside of the box sort of solo for him, and you know the guitar work on it, like he drives the song. I mean, of course, Ozzy's in the driver's seat because he's singing his ass off in here.
Well, and to be on an album like this, I mean, you kind of got to bring it.
Yeah.
This album shows that there's no room for slouches.
No, they got top tier talent on here, and they all really showed up. It isn't without like some hiccups on it. There are what I consider like some misfires somewhat, but for the most part, I really do dig this. A big issue for me, and it kind of happens around the middle of the album, is we kind of go into soft intro land. Now, granted, the music's solid, they build in the song well, but after a while, like pretty much through One of Those Days, 1,000 Shades, Mr. Darkness, and Nothing Feels Right, like they all kind of open the same way. Really good, dreary melodies. I mean, I'd even say No Escape for Now, but there's that sort of, Iommi touch to it where it feels darker. Like,
I can't talk shit about that song.
Yeah, I can't talk shit about that song. It's too good. But those songs that follow it for that run, they all kind of open the same way. They all kind of almost have the same dynamic where it's a soft lead in, Ozzy kind of builds into the verse, and then you get this big giant chorus. And they're all like really well done for the most part. I really enjoyed them, but I felt like I was kind of listening to
The same song.
It's the same song, just rearranged slightly differently. And,
Correct.
Well, with maybe some different guitarists on it.
Like One of Those Days, first of all, it's got Eric Clapton on it, and he does some very tasty noodlies in the beginning, because that's what he does. There wasn't a lot to that song, I felt. While there's a lot of heart and whatever, which is great, it had that kind of slow lead in, and it just felt like another song on the album.
Yeah. Honestly, it was interesting in the sense that it feels more like something that would have influenced Ozzy back when he was younger, because it does kind of sound a bit like Cream. Like it's more blues rock. Kind of that 60s boogie to it a little bit. It's a decent song. It's just, it kind of comes after, some really solid starter songs.
Yes.
And while I think the songwriting here is really well done for the most part, there are some issues in terms of like some transitions in songs. Namely Mr. Darkness.
Yeah, so it's a great jam.
It is.
But the issue I have is where the bridge starts. It's got this slow kind of like bluesy jam to it. It doesn't stick with it long enough. It gets into this bluesy jam, and right when you think like the lead's gonna kick in, there's a little bit of a lead, and then it cuts back to bouncy and fun. And then it cuts out of that back into the bluesy thing. Like, the whole bouncy fun part, in my opinion, wasn't necessary. Or maybe it was after they did a whole like bluesy lead, but that transition is really weird, and it kind of throws that song off.
Yeah.
Because the song is really good, but it felt a little like mismatched.
Yeah, like, it'd be a matter of like maybe going on just a few measures longer on those sections. Like where it comes out of the bridge and into the chorus, it really felt jarring just in terms of that transition. And I kind of had like the same issues on Parasite, which I think is a pretty solid song. It has this hard transition from like, again, kind of like a softer, moodier, verse section. And then it goes into a pre-chorus that, Taylor Hawkins is on it, and it has kind of a Foo Fighters sort of energy to it, but it kind of launches a little too quickly, and then the chorus kind of drops off into like a totally different vibe. I don't know. It didn't necessarily work as a whole, though I did enjoy the song. And, we were thinking about it, and, maybe, since Taylor Hawkins passed, like, maybe there was some stuff that they still need to iron out in terms of his, drum tracks near. I don't know, like, the timetable on this.
It's a possibility that maybe those songs were incomplete, or not so much incomplete, but, like, maybe the mapping of it just wasn't where it needed to be, and maybe they needed to, like, run over some things, and when he passed away, what do you do?
Yeah.
You obviously don't want to cut those tracks for, purely to pay homage at that point. You don't want to cut those tracks, and you obviously want to leave it there, so of course put it out as is. Maybe that's not the case, but it's a possibility that it could be.
But overall, I was pretty impressed with this. And there was a part of me that there was like a fear. Like this was going to be more of like an Ozzy tribute, just with Ozzy singing on every track. But I didn't get that. I got a really good variety of stuff that definitely encapsulates Ozzy's like almost entire fucking career. And a lot of stuff that, feels like it came from the heart. It's very earnest, and it's very catchy for the most part. I'm an old school fucking Ozzy fan. I've been listening to this guy for fucking forever. Like, some of my earliest MTV memories are like that, and Scorpions, Talking Heads, and shit like that. There's a lot of shit. I watched a lot of TV in the 80s. I still watch a lot of TV. But I really dug this, and I'm going to give this 3.5 stars. Now, I probably did rate Ordinary Man a little bit higher, and there is a reason for that. I thought it was going to be Ozzy's last album, and there are songs that I really do love on that album, but I like this album as a whole. Like, there really isn't much I would take off of here at all. It has great hooks. I feel like if you just listen to Ozzy, given at any point that if you jumped on, like, I only jumped on the 90s, or I jumped on the 80s, I only listened to Sabbath, guess what? You're going to find something you like on here. He made great use of his guests. The songs are just fucking catchy as hell. And, there's really not too much I have a problem with, other than, some issues in terms of, like, how some songs start, and there's some transitional stuff. And, sometimes the production was maybe a little mismatched, but for the most part, this is a really good album. I'd recommend checking it out. This theoretically could be the last one. We said that last time. I hope I'm wrong.
Right. I hope there's much more to come.
Yeah. If this is, what the future of Ozzy is going to be like in terms of, like, new music, I'm all for it. Yeah. So, more Ozzy, and way to fucking go, Ozzy.
Yeah. it's a 4 for me. Even the minor transitional issues I had didn't take away from the overall feel of the entire vibe of this album. It's very warm and fuzzy. It's very home feeling. It's very... The family came together and wrote a banger. It's full of guitar gods, and not only guitar gods, but people that have been an active part of Ozzy's life over the years. Like, you know, Zach brought it, just as he always does, but he toned it down a little bit and gave it a little more feel. And Iommi came in and ripped shit up, because that's what he does. Like, overall, it was just very nostalgic feeling, and very just like, yeah, all right, what a way to create another masterpiece in the collection. All of the songs were fun. Even the ones I didn't like so much still had great elements in them. It's just got a real good feeling to it. And it's very well done, very well put together. And while it, you know, isn't necessarily a tribute to Ozzy, I think it's more a tribute to the legend of Ozzy. More of like, you know, hey man, let's make this a good one. You know, we don't know necessarily what's in store for the future, so let's make a fucking banger while we can. And I really love that about it. But yeah, it's a 4 from me, for sure. It's a great album, and like Nick said, at any point you could easily jump onto this and catch the embodiment of his career. You could catch little bits and nods all over this record.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely go check it out. Way to go. Great job. I had a lot of fun.
Now, before I do my outro spiel, we've been meaning to change up from these little bad boys. This is Ivan Duty and, I don't know, Brochacho number 3 in the band. I don't know what his name is.
This is Dipspit.
Dipspit. We're going to retire him.
Very five-finger death punchy, and we here at Thralls, so obviously you know our opinion about the band, so it was time to go. So I'm just going to
over here
out there.
And we got some new skulls.
And we got some new skulls.
I'm not going to name them yet.
Yep, not yet. Maybe we'll leave that up to you. Maybe we'll make it a Patreon special or something.
There you go.
But,
name our skulls. There we go. That looks splendid.
Great.
So, yeah, now we have some fresh new skulls, which is a fun sentence to say out loud on the internet.
Fresh new skulls. Yes, that shouldn't get us popped, right?
No,
we've said way worse here.
Definitely said way worse. So, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. The link to Patreon is on that site, and while you're on there, you can actually check out our shirts. We will have new merch available.
Coming.
So, it's, you know, whenever that comes out.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
A lot of other stuff.
Yep.
A lot of other stuff we're working on.
Tons of other stuff, because when have you ever known Thralls of Metal not to have a ton of stuff up their sleeve?
We only look like we're lazy sacks of shit. We're actually kind of moderately, almost nearly productive.
Yes, I'm actually somewhat of a busy man, so, you know, whatever.
And, of course, as always, thank you all so much for liking, subscribing, commenting, following. It's all fucking awesome.
Continually tuning in. I don't understand it, but thank you.
It's awesome, and I absolutely love doing this. I love that you guys seem to love that we do this, and there's so much stuff I want to talk about on here, and it's just awesome to find an audience.
Yep, we have only begun to scrape the surface, and I mean, we've been around 4 years now.
Jesus Christ.
Dude, it'll be 4 years in December, on your birthday, actually, so, yeah, wow. Thank you guys for continually tuning in and checking out to see what we have to say. As stupid as we may be, we enjoy the ever-loving fuck out of this. So thank you so much from the bottom of our black little hearts and our black lungs.
Yeah.
And, man, but thank you, nonetheless.
And with that, once again, we will thank you, because you've been good. You're awesome.
You're fucking awesome. I know you know who you are. Yeah.
And we... we'll catch you later.